us. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn for the Great Plains Black History Museum. My name is Rachel Adams. I'm the Chief Curator and Director of Programs at the Bemis Center. And I hope you all had a lovely weekend. We are excited to present this program today with our community partner, the Great Plains Black History Museum, a conversation between Eric L. Ewing and Preston Love Jr. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over a few things that we're doing. Please keep yourself muted, but you can have your camera on. Please use the chat. We'd love to know where you're joining us from, whether it's Omaha or elsewhere. So please chat in and say hello and tell us where you're viewing from today. And then also, I'm just going to go over a few things that are happening at Bemis, and then we'll get started. As part of our exhibition Altogether Amongst Many Reflections on Empathy, as part of this program is as well, we have another in-person program on Thursday night, the last of our public assemblies, Authority as Reclamation, with our co-facilitators Maria Corpuz and Elagia Makizia. So if you are in the Omaha area, please join us for that. It starts at 7 p.m. The galleries are open until 9 on Thursdays. And you can also come a little early to walk around the exhibition if you haven't been able to see it yet. It is on view until September 19th. Next week, if you are a member or an alum of Bemis, we are doing a talk with our alumni, Stephanie Sahuko, who's actually also in our exhibition that's up right now. There's information on how to RSVP at bemiscenter.org/events. If you're not sure if you are an alumni or a member, feel free to email us at info@bemiscenter.org to find that out. Or if you want to join, you can do so on our website very easily. We have really accommodating memberships that help keep our programs free. And then as part of our exhibition, we are doing a large community meal with the St. Paul based artist Setu Ken Jones. The meal is called Food Just Us, an intersection of food and art. And we'll be doing this on September 18th. And this is by invitation only, but we are asking for help for volunteers to help create meal boxes, as well as help with the meal and deliveries. And if you're a volunteer, then you also get to join us for the meal. So if you're interested in volunteering with Bemis for this or any other volunteer opportunity that might be coming up, please sign up here, or again, you can email us at that info@bemiscenter.org email address if you have any questions about this. Setu is an artist that has been working at the intersection of food and art for a long time. He's done several community meals. This will have sort of conversation associated with it, as well as a poem and a benediction. And then you'll be able to leave with a piece that Setu made in this meal box that contains all this information about food and access to local food and things like that. So please, if you're interested in that, and you can also just direct chat me too if you have any questions. And again, if you're excited about the programming that we're doing and helping to keep all of our programs free, you can go to bemiscenter.org/support to support us. And yeah, thank you again for joining us. And then I'm going to hand it over. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Find you all. There you are. Too many windows open. Again, thanks for joining us. And I'm going to hand it over to Eric Ewing. Thank you again, Eric, for leading these lunch and learns, the one that we had previously and then one today. So thanks again.
Well, thank you for having us. Before we get started, everyone, I'm going to share a quick video, It's about 5 minutes long. So we'll show that and then we'll get started.
Me? Okay, fine, I got you. So, the time starts now. We can't just be sitting back. We got to do it. I'll be a slave. I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me.
Hello everyone, my name is Mariana Miller and I am a junior at Legacy High School in Bismarck, North Dakota. In the summer of 2019, I was blessed with the amazing opportunity to go on the first ever Black Votes Matter tour. I have always had a huge interest in Black history and civil rights, but this tour not only expanded those interests, but it equipped me with tools that I could use in the real world to apply these interests and do what I love while applying my love for Black history. On January 25th of 2021, I presented to the school board the formal request for the banning of the Confederate flag. And for those of you who know nothing about North Dakota, one thing that you should know is that it is a very conservative state, so there is no ban in place like this. 2 weeks later, I learned that they accepted my formal request, and the Confederate flag is now banned at Bismarck Public Schools. I wholeheartedly believe that this tour gave me the confidence that I had to go in front of them and give this speech that I would not have gained elsewhere. This tour really built up my confidence in that aspect.
I'm here with Omaha's future, our youth. We're here in Birmingham, Alabama, and we have had an exciting day. We are sitting on the steps of the 16th Street Baptist Church, where 4 little innocent girls were killed.
What goes through your mind when you visit this church?
Well, my heart always flutters, not only because of the loss of life, but the injuries and the hate, how far hate will go.
Day 2, and I've already learned so much. Like, I just want to keep learning and do more things like this and try to get like my brother and sister to go in places like this. So yeah, I've learned a lot.
A lot of emotions, a lot of understanding, and you have to take that all in and then use it like in your lifestyle when you wake up every morning.
And like people are starting to really fight for African Americans.
This morning, we're in Selma, Alabama, and we visited the iconic Edmund Pettus Bridge, where John Lewis was beaten bloody as he fought for, with many others, the right to vote. And the resulting action from that was the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which parenthetically is under siege right now.
Like me personally, the first day I did kind of feel indifferent because I knew everything about that place already. But like as I went on, I started to like feel like I had to make something of myself in the future because I didn't want everything to go to waste. I was getting chills earlier because the Ku Klux Klan outfit had dried blood on it, and that literally gave me chills. And it's just, it's unreal to me. My first time I witnessed something Black history like was when I was in 2nd grade, and my mom showed me a video of Emmett Till. It was uncensored, and I was traumatized since that very moment. And that's like what sparked me. And I definitely do want to make something of myself one day because...
We're in day 5 of this wonderful tour. Today, we're in Montgomery, Alabama. We're standing here at the National Memorial for Peace and Justice.
To really get a change out there is we need to get more into the law, like have people on the inside and have more Black people be part of like governors instead be part of senators or lawyers. And so we can change the laws on the inside instead of having to go out to the streets all the time where it doesn't always work. All right.
Freedom. One time for the city jail. Freedom. One time for the city hall. The Constitution of the United States says that we'll do freedom, 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 justice, 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 yes, Lord, 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 freedom, 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 freedom. We got a job to do. We got a job to do.
All right. Well, I'd like once again like to welcome everyone here today. And I want to first start off by introducing our, I want to first start off by ending the video. All right. Okay. And now I want to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Preston Love Jr. He brings the wisdom derived from his life experience, his crusades and community activism for economic inclusion to his work. Preston, who is a president of the men in his church. Let me put my eyes on, maybe I can see that a little bit better. He gives all honor to Jesus Christ, married to Martha, his spiritual leader and his best supporter. He has a bachelor's of science degree in economics, a master's degree from Bellevue University for professional studies, and his career accomplishments. He's attended University of Nebraska Lincoln, played football there, played for the drafted by the Detroit Lions, IBM pioneer marketing executive, microcomputer historic innovator, groundbreaking political mogul, playwright, award-winning newspaper columnist, editorial page columnist, contributor, and national lecturer. And he currently heads an organization called Black Votes Matter and for Urban, Mr. Preston Love. So Preston, glad to have you here today. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself, or something that maybe that I may have not captured in my reading of your bio?
Well, you know, you made all that up.
Well, I got to do something for you.
Well, let me just say that I want to thank you, Eric, and the organization which you head, which is the Great Plains Black History Museum and Bemis Center, for including me in your thoughts and therefore in this program. I would also say that I congratulate you and them because in these times, and I could do the litany that would include COVID and all of its horribleness, but not only that, the fires, the flooding, the hurricanes, the divisiveness politically and otherwise in our country, and the attacks on democracy, and all of that and more. So I congratulate you and Bemis for pressing on with other things, with the arts, with the history, and with making sure people keep acquainted with joy and happiness and good things, in spite of all of the other lists of things that could take us down. I congratulate you on that.
Well,
I surely.
They say when it rains, it pours.
Yes, and it's pouring in so many ways. I appreciate your introduction. My resume, it comes about with a somewhat of a lifelong commitment to community service, but not entirely, simply only about 45 years of community service. That should tell you how old I am, if that's just a part of my life. I surely spent 15 years with IBM, and I spent time working in public service in Atlanta, working for and with probably most of all the iconic civil rights personalities that we all are familiar with as part of my background. And so my hometown, Omaha, Nebraska, North Omaha in particular, is where my heart has always been and where now I am in this phase of my life. I bring to this discussion and any discussion going forward, all of those experiences, both good, bad, and ugly, and the wisdom that comes with it. I just recently released a new compilation of articles that I wrote for the Omaha World Herald editorial page, in which it's called Wisdom's Foresight. And we talk about these things. But I just am thrilled to be able to talk about not myself, but about the Black Votes Matter tour and all of its wonderful pieces. The short video that you saw, wasn't the music wonderful in the background? That music was recorded on the last tour, the 2021 tour, and that singing choir was the choir from the 16th Street Baptist Church. And they met us across the street from the church. Of course, the 16th Street Baptist Church is where the 4 little girls were killed in the bombing. Across the street is Kelly Ingram Park, where many of you have the images of the fire hoses and the dogs. That's where that was. We walked across the street to the park, and we were entertained by the choir from the 16th Street Baptist Church outside in a wonderful, wonderful weather and wonderful setting as they sang some of the freedom songs. And we just loved it. The kids loved it. And so that's what that was. And I appreciate you showing that video. And so again, without too much more about myself, I do appreciate the introduction and a chance to dialogue with your audience. Thank you so much.
So now there's a couple of organizations that you're leading that we're going to kind of talk about. One is for Urban, and the other is the Black Votes Matter. When did those organizations begin, and what's the mission of those organizations?
Well, they began informally, quite frankly. I mentioned, and it may sound a little self-serving, but I have been committed to community service for now over 40 years. And when I came back home in 2006, I came back home, quite frankly, because my iconic and wonderful, famous father, Preston Love Jr., had passed and my mother had Alzheimer's. I came back home to just be with family and retire. Ha, ha, ha. And little did I know that I found my community in, quite frankly, bad shape as far as I was concerned. I was very disappointed in the lack of investment in North Omaha and the lack of progress in areas that are so important, including housing and economic development, small business development, equality, equity, diversity before we began to talk about it in those ways. And so out of that concern, I began to get involved in my hometown, in my own community. And out of that emerged the 2 organizations, Black Votes Matter, which is a 501c3 nonpartisan group, and For Urban, which is an evolution from Black Votes Matter, but is kind of devoted more to the development of community in another way. Specifically now, we're getting a lot of activities in DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also there we have a strong eye on the economic sense of providing framework. And my wisdom, quite frankly, having lived and worked all over this country, how best to develop communities, urban communities that are rocked with poverty, and apply that to North Omaha. That is where urban development comes from. The tour, yes,
Preston,
go ahead.
You mentioned, you say, the things that you did were self-serving, but to me, it seems like the things in which you're involved with are allowing other people to get engaged and to learn and to grow as well. So, I don't, I don't know necessarily saying what you've been doing is serving you. I still think it's been serving the community and serving in particularly we saw in the video, our youth and getting them exposed to maybe some things in which they probably otherwise would not have been exposed to.
Oh, no question. And I say self-serving only in that I don't want to make this conversation about me. That's my point, because it is not about me. It is about the service. And in this particular venue, it's about our future, which is about our youth in every way. And so I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this tour because of what impact it has had and is having and should have. And there's such a demand intellectually and otherwise to have on our kids. And as we get to talk about the tour a little bit, if we have time, and we talk about the 2021 tour, we had a very unique experience this year based on some of the things that I mentioned earlier that are impacting the mental health, the minds and bodies and spirits of our kids.
So what made you decide to start doing the face-to-face Black History tour with the youth? What sparked you to do that?
Well, I think I'm trying to remember in your introduction in my background whether it was mentioned, but I am a professor at UNO, and I teach in the Black History, Black Studies department, as well as political science. And so as a professor, and also as a frequent flyer in middle schools and in high schools, I'm talking to youth all the time. And I'm thinking, and my experience of standing before my class, where I have African-American and so many other ethnic ethnicities in my class, and I'm standing there talking to them about Black history, and guess what? They don't know it, any of it. The African-Americans don't know about it, and neither do the other kids. And so it began to wear me down and then I talk with high school kids, they have no clue about Black history. And some of it is, I'm old enough to think it's not even history, it's almost current events. But I became dismayed that our kids were growing up and even at the level of being sophomores and juniors in college and not know their history. And I said, I need to make a difference here because these kids with all their wonderful intellect and potential could be leaders, but I don't want a leader in my community, from my community, who doesn't understand and know about his own history. And so I said that I needed to think that through, and out of that thinking process, along with many others who have been on my team for a long time, including yourself, we devised the Black Votes Matter tour. And we can get more specific about that. But that's where it came from. It came from a desire to teach our kids so they could learn history, they could respect it, and maybe then go out and make it.
Now, I know when we were watching the video, it had that part of the clip showing the I Am a Man, when they were protesting down south. And I know it's also part of the exhibit currently at the Bemis. Can you tell me some of the things that the places that the kids went to and some of the things that they had an opportunity to be exposed to?
Oh my goodness, yes. I'm sure we have about 5 hours, but I'll do it in a couple of minutes. But the tour was originally designed, and I guess the way I would say it is that the tour was a response to the lack of knowledge, as I mentioned, and the need to plant the seed to our youth as it relates to the history. And so, but we've enhanced it over the years. But we go from Omaha, we take 40 high school kids, black, white. This year we had black and white, of course. We had Hispanic, we had African, we had Jewish, we had a full range of kids and all of the diverse ways that you could look at it. And we went and left. It's a 6-day tour now. Originally, Eric, when you were involved every year up until this last year, it was a 5-day tour. We added Mississippi, but we go to Memphis, Tennessee, where Martin Luther King's life came to an end, and to some degree, for your listeners, so did the civil rights movement. But and he was there to fight for and advocate for the garbage workers there, and that I Am a Man march and syndrome, what came out of that protest. So we go to Memphis, Tennessee. We go to the Mason Temple, where he made his last speech the night before he was killed. We go to the hotel where he was killed on the balcony, and all of that history we teach and face to face. We go from there to Jackson, Mississippi, the home, and maybe to some degree, a big part of where the civil rights movement started in the mid-50s with the killing of Emmett Till, and later the killing of the iconic leader in Mississippi, Medgar Evers, and all the history in Mississippi. We go from there to Birmingham, the 16th Street Baptist Church, as I mentioned, and Kelly Ingram Park, and all of the history in Birmingham and all of that. We go to Tuskegee and all of the history there. We go to Selma. We go to Selma and relive the 3 Selma marches. The first one, which is called the Bloody March, and where John Lewis.
I see behind you in the picture of the, there's groups standing at the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
That is exactly right. That is the 2019 group where we're standing prior to us walking across the bridge. And I think you're probably in that picture, and so many others. We had a large group. We had 95 people that year. And we're standing at the mouth of that bridge. We go across, we go to Selma and learn all of that history, walk across the emotional trip across that bridge. We go from there and spend kind of almost 2 separate days in Montgomery, part of it being all of the history of the part of the initial phases of the civil rights movement with the Montgomery bus strike and Rosa Parks. But then we go and we get an emotional roller coaster trip to the Equal Justice Initiative, which includes the Legacy Museum and the now iconic memorial to all of the lynchings, over 4,000 documented lynchings. That includes 2 from Omaha. And it's very emotional. The legacy that deals with the slavery and all of its horrors, and some of the horrors of the civil rights pushback for people trying to get. We do that, and then we go on to Atlanta and complete the journey there.
Yeah, I want to go back to the Equal Justice Initiative. When you were out there, those canisters, what were those canisters? I mean, look like, they started off at, for those who may not, have experienced it, kind of explain the story behind those canisters.
Well, each one of those canisters, and they were quickly shown in the 5-minute video, they're hanging from the ceiling, and they're like coffins. There's a lot of different ways you can look at it, but they are canisters. They look bronze. And on each canister is inscribed by county, by state, all of the documented lynchings by county, by state. In one of those canisters, it says Douglas County, Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska, and it has the names George Smith and Will Brown inscribed. Those are our two lynchings, stories in themselves. To see them in another venue is emotional, but those canisters then are there, and when you group them in the way that they are at different levels as the way they do present it, it's dramatic. Some of those canisters have 30 lynchings in one day in one county, and amazing. And then they have a duplicate canisters that are laid on the ground, which each city and county that have lynchings have the ability to go and make protocol requests to have them brought to the city. We are and have been, both of us belong to an organization called the Council, that's the short name, but that we have brought a marker commemorating Will Brown, and we'll have one for George Smith. And then the canisters we hope to bring here as well. Good question.
Yeah, the council, it's called the Omaha Community Council for Racial Justice and Reconciliation. I'm just showing off a little bit because I think it took me about 2 years to remember that acronym.
I'm still working on it.
So, and now, I don't know, I don't remember seeing in the video the soil samples. Do you want to discuss the soil samples?
The soil samples, again, that emanates from an initiative by the Equal Justice Initiative, in which they request a relationship with the cities where there have been lynchings. And then if they develop that relationship, and that relationship has to be community-wide, it can't be just somebody. We established that relationship, and we're able to then conduct a ceremony here where we actually took samples of the soil where Will Brown was viciously lynched, shot, burned to a crisp here in Omaha. Then we keep, they take a copy of a jar full of that soil back and put it among all the other jars. It's pretty dramatic. When we were in Montgomery this past year, I had a firsthand look, and I'm gonna make a confession. I hope nobody's listening. But you're not supposed to take pictures in there, inside the museum, and the jars were there. So I know there's,
we can't confirm or deny the fact that we do have a picture of the soil collected.
I don't know
from
where
Will
it came from, but it's the jars of the soil is a very emotional piece. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
And so,
Preston, someone had a quick question here. How are students selected to go on the trip, and how is the trip funded? If individuals want to support the trip, how can they do so?
Well, allow me to faint and wake back up. But first of all, very good question. Where do the youth come from? Well, let me just take the fun for saying initially, and Eric, you were part of this conversation, how do we go about? Well, we could just put a word out. Anybody wants to come on, let's go. That was one option. Another would be to go to the high schools, maybe go to the churches, maybe all of that. And what we arrived with is, why not go to our youth groups, the groups that are interacting with youth and know the youth well. And we want to make sure that, and we always do, that we don't just try to go and find our best, that we find a good range of our youth, those who are exemplary and responsible and all of that, and those who have challenges, because all of them need the same education. So we try to balance that. But we go to the youths, we go to Girls Inc., We go to the Girls and Boys Club. We go to the Hope Center. We go to the Avenue Scholars. We go to, in this year, we took 2 kids, wonderful young ladies from Boys Town, of all places, including the Boys Town mayor. And we go to those youth groups. We do go to selected church groups. This year, we had a representative from the Temple Israel. We had some kids from Baptist groups and other groups, but we try to have a full range, but we go to groups is the answer to the question and get the youth from there. I hope that we'll have enough time for me to just mention briefly the challenges and the uniqueness of the 2021 tour. But let me answer the other question. It costs about $65,000 to do the tour. The tour, I didn't mention, but all expenses are paid. There's no expense for the kids at all. We take the kids, of course, we take chaperones and a few members of the staff that go with us. And so we travel with a 54-passenger charter bus. We've been using Aero, and they have worked out very well. But we also take a 12-passenger van with us to trail along behind us. And then on that van, we have people like, we have a nurse, we have usually camera crews or some photographic, we had that, so forth. This year, real quickly, we had for 2 days, members, principals from OPS joined us for a day. We put them on the van. Also, you may have noticed in the video that for the second year, Dr. Cheryl Logan showed up for a day to be with us. That was she and I walking in the front as we walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. But so all of that.
If people aren't aware, Dr. Logan is the superintendent of OPS, Omaha Public Schools, for those who are not from Omaha. So.
Oh, very good. And what a job that to be a superintendent of any school district at this time, point of time is a challenge. But she took the time off to join us because she saw the importance for the kids and for, in this case, the teachers. So we raised the money. And so, yes, we kind of start that process probably next month formally. We make application to some of the iconic foundations, but these small donations add up. And so anyone that thinks that we're doing good work, and I can assure you that we are, donations can be done. And you can really probably do that in several ways. But if you contact either the Great Plains Black History Museum or even Bemis, they know how to get a hold of us. We do have a website that you can contact us, and that website is the number 4urban.org. There's a lot of ways on that website where you can figure out how to help. Help is needed every year. Again, we start the year with zero, and we try to raise that money every year and to get those students on. I appreciate that question.
Okay. All right, and let's see. All right, I covered all those answers. I was trying to type into the chat your email and then the website. So I'll get that on there before we wrap up. Oh, so it looks like someone already put it in there.
Yeah.
And here's your email.
Oh yeah, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
I want to mention that it's important for the audience to understand, and I will make it short, but I wrote an editorial on this for the World Herald. I hope some of you, if you're out of town, that's our daily newspaper, but about this year's tour as opposed to other tours. And it has to do with the mental health of us all. the adults and the kids. And their mental health has been severely impacted by that list of things that I talked about in my short introduction, COVID being the leader, and the uncertainty, the stress of it all. And you add that to poverty-stricken, urban-based communities that have their own challenges to go along with it. We're talking about a different youth this year when we went on the tour. And we had more time we needed to spend to get them settled down mentally, to relax them, to remove the layers of stress and, quite frankly, anger and all of the things that are embedded in our kids from the world that we're presenting them every day is part of what we had to endure on this tour, uniquely this year. And so we had that. And I said in my article, and you might find of interest, that the one thing that we're proud of on this tour, 2021, we had lots of issues we never had before. Getting them to pay attention, to be responsible, to show character, respect for others. All of that was part of what we taught them in, as well as the history. Finally, they began to get it. But the other thing that we did, and I paused, is they watched us pray. I said they watched us pray. Because as we went through some of the challenges of the tour, some of them were mechanical. We had the van broke down. And when the van broke down, that breaks down the tour in a funny kind of way. And there's a lot of great stories I don't have time to tell, but we prayed and the kids watched us pray. So guess what? Without trying, without having that part of our agenda, we taught them the value of prayer. And so we built characters, even though it may not have been on our agenda. Very important. And so, yes.
Yeah. So Preston, I know one thing that you did in 2019, you created a children's book that relates to the tour. Do you want to talk a little bit about that book?
Sure. There was a quick image of that on the short video, but yes, after the success of the tour and the impact that we saw on these kids, and the impact is dramatic. And that's why I wanted to show that video, because you're listening to those kids talk about the tour on their own, unscripted way. And they got value. Watch the little girl, Mariana, who was a freshman when she went on the tour. And as a junior, she moved to Bismarck, South Dakota, and actually had the confidence that she said she got from the tour to go before the school board and talk them into changing their policy on the Confederate flag. Because kids were wearing the Confederate flag T-shirts, and they voted in her favor, and she gives credit to some degree to the tour. But I realized that we were having the impact on the kids. They're going on tour, but that we had another generation coming up that we hadn't planted the seed. We needed to plant the seed with them. They were not old enough to process the tour. So I decided right on the spot one day to write a children's book to try to plant the seed of literacy and plant the seed of history for them. And that book has gone on to be an award-winning book. In fact, later on this month, that book will be receiving a National Library of Congress Children's Book, National Book Award. And we're so proud of that. But that was written to try to plant the seed in our little kiddios about history. And I've gotten those books. I've sold a lot of them, but I've given a lot of them away to so many groups. Kids Can, Forever, I forget all the names of it. And I go into elementary schools and give them away and talk to the kids, because they need to begin to have those historical seeds planted and begin to love literacy themselves. Thank you for raising that question.
and I believe the book is called Your Bridge to History, correct?
That is correct. It was co-written by my sister and I, Portia Love, many of you locally may know, and one of the mothers of one of the kids who went on the tour. Her name is Regina Jean-Pierre, and she was one of us, and she did the illustrations, and great job, great job. She said, I can draw, I can do it. And I went, oh yeah. And then she started working on it, and she did an exemplary job. The book has done well in every way.
Now I'm going to kind of change the question just a little bit here, Preston, because on August 28th of this year was the 58th anniversary on the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And we currently have that exhibit on display in the museum. And one of the questions I pose to folks when they come in, and I just want to get your thought. If Dr. King was here still alive today, what would he say about his dream? Would he say that mission accomplished, or what do you think his perspective would be on that famous speech?
Well, I think first I'll tell you what I say, and then we'll figure out what he say. And that is, actually his dream was temporarily accomplished. The civil rights movement had three major impacts. It had the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which had great value, great victory, great impact. It had the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which had great accomplishments, great impact. And I could go a long time talking about the details of those impacts. And the 1968 Fair Housing Act, that was a result of the Civil Rights Act. And that was part of his dream. And that was realized for a period of time. I teach in my class the cycle of the justice. And that cycle is that it doesn't stay. You have to keep fighting. We had actually the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to the Constitution, which fixed it all theoretically. The 15th Amendment allowed all males to vote, yet we still had to fight Jim Crow and fight the civil rights movement before we really got that right. And so that cycle. And now Mr. King, who has woke up from his dream, he needs to now take a sleeping pill and have another dream, because we're now fighting that battle all over again. And so it has turned out, not that his dream turned out to be a nightmare, but those of us who did not dream have allowed this nightmare to happen to us. Don't get me started. But we've got work to do at every level. Voting rights, part of the work of Black Votes Matter is the fight for voting rights. Right now in our state here in Nebraska, we're having to fight to not have to change our constitution to make voter ID required. We are faced with redistricting and hopefully having not to have to be gerrymandered in our legislative and congressional districts. And then we have an eye to the national level, where we have so many incredible things happening to suppress and reduce voting participation. Dr. King could not go to sleep anymore. That's what I say.
Now, when you mention those various amendments, you might want to not forget to throw in that old 19th Amendment, which ended women's suffrage, which then gave women the right to vote as well. So we want to make sure we
sure do
include that one in there.
And it was 50, just for the women in the audience, it took 50 years from the 15th Amendment in 1870 to 1920 for the 19th Amendment to be passed. And then for African-American women, some believe they really didn't get that really right until the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And may I say, as an advocate, that Voting Rights Act was significant. The impact of that was can be found in the elected officials of all colors came out of that, and the teeth to fight Southern states who were fighting that. The teeth to fight them back was dismantled in 2013 by a Supreme Court ruling in Shelby versus Holder that basically took all the teeth out of the 1965 Voting Rights Act and now is on the table right now in the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to restore the power of that, along with the HR 1, which is the other more proactive Voting Rights Act. But it's all getting lost in the divisiveness and the fighting for so many other things that are going on, infrastructure and all the other things are all caught up in a very curious, challenging sort of way.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and when I have folks come into the museum, I talk about, with the 1964 Civil Rights Act and then the 65 Voting Rights Act, I always point out the fact if we were really enforcing the Constitution with the 14th, 15th, and the 19th Amendment, then we wouldn't have to have these supplementary deals with the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And also when the 64 Voting Rights Act was signed and added, that was the third addition to that particular law. But I think if we were just to enforce the Constitution as it was meant to be enforced, I don't think we would need these supplementaries. But, that's just my thought on that.
The truth of the matter is that the cycle continues. Those who believe in the women's right to choose cannot relax just because they had a constitutional amendment nearly 50 years ago, nor can we relax because we had the 1964 and 65 and 68 Civil Rights Acts there. We cannot relax. The enemy, if you will, to fairness and equal justice under the law and voting rights continues to do creative things to suppress. And I don't mean that in a partisan way. I mean that in a democracy sort of way. So we teach the kids face to face a part of the cycle where the civil rights movement and why, they can't believe it when they go and they look at two drinking fountains, one for coloreds and one for whites. They cannot, they don't conceive that until they see it. And they learn about that and they become emboldened, they become angry, they become emotional, but they become like little Mariana. They have the courage to stand up and fight. And that's what we hope that we're doing. We want to develop leaders. That's what the tour really is about. And we want those leaders to be knowledgeable about their own history and have the confidence to stand up. And I would say to the audiences that are listening today that, as I mentioned is that I commend that we are pressing on and having these kinds of sessions in the midst of all the things going on around us to provide people not only with information, but inspiration to keep pressing on, and that we all need not to relax, but to continue to do what we do.
So now for 2022, what's the plans on the tour? Is it still planned to happen? And as what one of the persons mentioned, when will you start reaching out to those organizations to see about getting students to participate?
We're beginning to start working on the timeline right as you speak. I had a meeting yesterday on the timeline, where the timeline includes reaching out to those groups, begin to start raising money, we have established that we're going to have the tour in the third week of July, like we did this year. And we are excited about enhancing the Mississippi portion of the tour. We learned some things. Mississippi was, this year was the first year we went to Mississippi. We had some incredible people that joined us there. And so the process is beginning right now as we speak. And So, yes.
Well, we're wrapping down. We're about to the time, our time limit. We got 2 minutes left. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Is there any questions that anyone may want to ask?
Well, let
Well,
me say this. It was a pleasure to be able to just wax about things in general and about the tour and how they all interconnect. The tour is not something sitting out there. It is about developing characters, developing information and historical perspective in our youth, and all of that interconnects with everything else that everybody on this video Zoom is working on. We have to make the investment in all areas with our youth, else we're just like climate change. We can't just hope it gets fixed. We got to work on it. We got to take the initiative. And that's what I would like to leave with all of us. Let's keep pressing on. And good job.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. I will turn it back over to Miss Rachel, and thanks everyone for attending. If you're interested in finding out more information or visiting the museum, you can schedule an appointment by going to our website, which is gpblackhistorymuseum.org. And I'll put it in the chat. And we are open Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 1 to 5 by appointment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. And thank you so much, Preston. I really appreciate all of your words and in thinking about, just keeping on and moving forward. And, I just want to invite everyone also to visit us here at Bemis Center, to view our exhibition in which a lot of these topics are being talked about from various artists from across the country and bringing them here together. We're happy to tour you around or answer questions if you come down. We're also open Wednesday through Sunday. And I just want to thank Eric for being such an amazing community partner as part of this exhibition. I hope that we'll continue to do that in the future and share all of these amazing stories. So thank you all for being here today. And check us, follow us, and then we'll hopefully see you down at Bemis Center or at the Great Plains Black History Museum. Have a wonderful week, everyone.
Have a good one, everyone. Be safe.